we have a function, a special function for this operation. This function in, do you have Russian Excel? Yes, or English?
Yeah, we have Russian Excel.
Russian. In Russian Excel, all function, almost all function on in Russian. So the function called счет, счет с буквой Ё. Счет, and then счет. No. We will use function счет если. Счет если. Счет если. This function. So diapason is our data. Критерий. Let's write the same. We can write good in кавычки. Забыла как. В кавычках. Or we can write the link on the cell that contains this word. Let's try it. No. No. Without equal. Yes. Okay. Фух. So the function счет если. Let's spin the range of data with the key F4, to copy our function to other cells. We can copy now it the same way. Okay. And we have the table for our bar chart. Do you imagine how the bar chart look like? Do you imagine? Like a histogram, only with categorical data. We have an instrument in Excel to this bar chart. It's named histogram 2. So we can see, and we can turn this histogram in some way. We will format these data. For example, this value will be 0, and so if we select our rows, yes, we can choose формат ряда данных, open this window, and on this part, параметры ряда, we write 0 боковой зазор, So our bars are next to other and each other. And we can not very fine this сплошное вот это все, да? Let's try to do something. For example, borders, границы, сплошная линия, some color. Choose some color, choose some width, and so on. So, in the same way, we have a bar chart. A bar chart is a graph for our categorical data. So if we have, for example, color, maybe size, big, small, average, or so on. Age, for example, young, old, and others. And categorical data may be numbers. For example, how many children do we have? 5, 6, 2, 3. We can use this data as a categorical data. And another data, we have continuous data. For example, price. Yes, I took integer numbers, but it can be 48.7 or 45.35 or something. And for these values, we can't draw a bar chart. Yes, we will draw a histogram. What is the graph histogram or diagram? The histogram is used for demonstration of data changing in some period of time, for example, or for illustration, object comparison. And we will draw a histogram to such data. So we should divide our range of data into intervals to draw a histogram. If we will draw a bar chart, we can obtain every bar for every data. Yes, for example, if we don't have any repeated data in this data set. For example, we have 10 various data. Yes, we will have 10 various bars on our bar chart. So we will draw a histogram, and we should divide our data set to several intervals. How many intervals do we have? It's our own decision. So, for example, let's suppose we have such intervals. For example, let's take 33, 40, 40, 45. Or maybe let's take the interval equals to 5. Yes? 30, 35. 35, 40, and so on. 45, 50, and 50, 55. Okay. We have too many intervals for our 10 data, but we can shorten it numbers. It doesn't mean. How can we now we should count how many items in this range. How many items? We can sort our data set the same way. And we can see from 30 to 35, 2 data, yes? From 35 to 40, 2 data. From 40 to 45, 2 data. Oh. From 45 to 50, 3 data. From 50, oh, no. 40, 45, 40, 45, 2 data. 40, 45, 2 data. 42 and 45. 45 we write in this interval. And 45, 50, 3 data, 3 items, and 50, 55, 1 item. Yes? And we can now draw a histogram and format it in the same way as previous bar chart. Yes. Select data rows. Select this part of format data. Write 0 and so on. So we have histogram. It's not very beautiful histogram. It's in this case it doesn't show our some information, and let's take more data. Let's take more data to plot the diagram and later the box plot and to calculate some characteristics, statistical characteristics. Let's take the next sheet of our table. Do you have any questions on histogram and bar chart?
No.
Да, okay.
Sorry. Can you tell an English names of functions?
English name, I don't know. I
Wow.
think I think it can be count maybe instead of short count if maybe. Let's find this function in category statistic or in Russian language категория статистические функции. Вот тут у меня в этом окне, да, статистические функции. Здесь вот эти вот все статистические функции. Если у вас на английском языке, поищите здесь такие же, ну, аналогичные. Я думаю, найдете. Who has count if? Yes, count if. Who has English Excel? Excel in English.
I have.
I have. Who are you?
Anna Yazenko.
Mm-hmm. Do you find your function?
Yes.
This- Yes?
Yes, да.
Yes, okay. Who else? Okay, let's take the next set of data. The next set of data. Later we will calculate some statistical characteristic. And now let's try to see on this data and divide them by several intervals using some function of Excel. Yes, so if we have a small data set, in practice we won't have so small data set. Yes, we have million items or 1,000 items, so we won't count it by hand how many items are in this interval and that interval. Yes, so we have special function. Later we will discuss how to calculate how many range, how many intervals do we have, how many, what is the length of this interval, and so on. Now we will take some number of interval. For example, we have a task to divide our data to 5 interval or for 3 interval and so on. Let's calculate minimum and maximum value of this interval. If we sort our data, we can do it simply. Yes, but we have this is minimum of our interval, this is maximum of our interval, and we have special function in Excel. Let's use them. In Russian, I remember. Min and max. Min, then we select interval and press enter. So the minimum value of this interval is 1.88. And then we can copy this function in other column. For example, we have some amount of cells, for example, on years from 2013 to 2016, for example. And the minimum in this year, 2013, 1.88, and so on. Let's find maximum, calculate maximum. Function is max. Max. We select our cells, our data set, and we find max. Then we will find a difference between maximum and minimum. Maximum and minimum. It is the range of our data set. Let's range. Let's write it here. We'll count maximum minus minimum. And copy our data. So we have to subtract minimum from maximum. And then if we have a task to divide our data, for example, for 4 intervals or for 5 intervals. Let's do another. Let's do to have more interesting task. Let's suppose that we have these datas, and we have to draw a histogram on all these datas, not by yes, on all these datas, and we have to divide all these datas into, for example, 4 or 5 intervals. Let's copy these datas. We come back to this sheet later. Yes, we'll come back here. Let's find minimum, min and max, and range, and count of intervals. Min, max, range, count of intervals, for example, 5, okay? And length of interval equals range divided by count of interval. So to find our intervals, we should add this value to the minimum, to the next bound of interval, and so on. The first interval will be, let's take a little, sorry, one moment. when we finished. Okay, the first interval. Yes, first interval. 1 point, let's take 41 to 41. This is the lower bound, and the upper bound of this interval is low bound plus length. Yes. Oh, plus. Let's spin this cell. F4. Press F4 to copy our function. Then the next interval. Let's number them. 1, 2. We have 5 intervals. Yes, 5. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! The second interval. We can copy this cell. Yes, and then we can copy all cells. Yes, the last interval or something larger. Yes, okay. And the last interval we add some value. Oh, simply, let's write. That's our intervals, yes? How we can count how many values, how many items will be in this interval? How many items will be in this interval and so on? It's very difficult to do it by hand. Yes? I agree with me. And let's try to use a special function again. This function named частота. Частота. What are we seeing? What are we seeing? Частота вычисляет распределение значений по интервалам и возвращает вертикальный массив. Сейчас мы посмотрим, что это такое. What are arguments of this function? Массив данных. This is our data set. Массив данных. And массив интервалов. This is our array of intervals. What we see? 12 items are in the interval in the first interval from 1.61 to 6.03. And then what will we do? We'll select all these cells. We press key F2, and then we press simultaneously Control, Shift, and Enter. Control, Shift, and Enter. Let's repeat. First, we use the function частота. Select our array of data. Select our array of intervals. Enter. We have 12 items in our first interval. Then select 5 cells with these empty cells, the first and others. Press F2 on your keyboard. And then press Ctrl, Shift, and Enter. And we have already array of numbers, how many items are in each interval. Yes, do you understand? Let's check. We have 12 items in every column. 12 items. So we have 48 items. Now we have 48 items in this interval. You see, sum is 48. Okay? And now we can draw a histogram. You know already how to.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yes.
We have like a range between 1.61 to 6.3. However, in function частота, we use like the whole array. For example, on the second argument, you take F15, F19.
Yes.
But if we should take just E15, and F15.
Because we choose every item which will be less than this value. How many items are less this than 6.03? How many items are less than 10.45?
So why do we need the first line where we write like 1.61, 6.3, 10.45?
Yes.
Why do we need it? Because we didn't use it.
Why do we need it?
Yes, the first line, like column, the column E. We didn't use it.
We needed to calculate this range, this array. We needed because we add, this is the numbers of our range, of our intervals. First intervals is from 1.61 to 6.83, 6.03. The second interval is from 6.01. To calculate these numbers, we don't need these data,
Okay, I understood. Thank you.
but we needed to understand what we have. What intervals do we have? Yes. We write this interval, we can write it for convenient to understand our histogram. We can write, for example, we can write these intervals. Oh, no. To draw a histogram only. No. I want to copy this. To copy this data. We'll write beautiful. We'll write beautiful these intervals. What will we write under our x-axis? Yes, we write our intervals in our histogram. Let's select our cells, our data, and insert our histogram, and we can format our data, our row of data. And we have histogram. Yes, it is a beautiful histogram. You can use any other instrument, any other application for draw these graphs and diagrams. So do you have any question? How to count our intervals, or how to draw a histogram on someone else. No. Yes? Let's continue our topic of summarizing data. Yes, let's get to the topic of summarizing data. We'll consider some methods of so-called descriptive statistics, описательная статистика. Descriptive statistics methods allow us to describe all of our data in a way that is understandable, to another people. These methods can reduce a huge table to literally a few numbers. Descriptive statistic methods fall into two groups. The first group is called measures of central tendency. Меры центральной тенденции. Maybe you didn't use such characteristics, such central tendency measures. Central tendency measures help find the most typical value of variable. For example, if we take the size of something as a variable, then the measure of the central tendency will indicate which size is the most typical. There are three such measures: mode, median, and mean. Let's count these characteristics. For example, median. Or for example, mean. Let's take mean. Mean is the average of the data. Let's to count mean, we should add all our data and divide them, add all our values and divide them by count. And in Excel, we have a function. Yes, function знач. 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 Or we can add all our data, for example. No, sum, function sum. And divide it by count. Yes. We can copy for every year this function. And mean if you have a too large value, this value called an outlier. You remember, выбросы, outlier. Then it can move the average up a lot. And then it may not reflect the typical size of value. Therefore, it is often recommended to throw out such sizes. Let's talk about outliers later. And now we can consider the next characteristic. Let's count median. What is the median? What is the median? Who knows? Nobody knows?
It's a central value.
Yes, it is a central value. It is defined as a middle of an ordered series of value. So we can order our values and find a center of this series. It is calculated in two ways, for an odd and for an even number of value. Yes, if we have odd, нечетное количество, odd number of values, we can find the central number. So we will first order our values from minimum to maximum and find the central number. And if we have an even number, in the center we will find two values, yes? So we should count the average size of these values, and there will be median. For example, we have 12 data, 12. It is the even number of data. Let's order this data, and fifth and sixth data in the middle, we can find average value, average 9.695. Yes? Let's check this value with the function. Function mediana. In Russian. Maybe in English, median. Mediana. This is our median. So we counted the median, mean, median, and mode. We have mode. mode is what is this mode?
The most common number.
Yes, the most common, the most repeated number. But if we have continuous data, the evaluation of mode is a bit too hard, so too difficult. So we'll try to do it a bit later when we consider variation rows and so on. And if we have, for example, some categorical data or some model is suitable for both the quantitative and qualitative variables, or for numerical and categorical data. But it is simply to find model, for example, on this example, for categorical characteristics. We have, in this example, we have two mode. Yes, two mode. If we have, for example, 5 bad dinners, then we have mode 5 and so on. It is simply, but for continuous data, it is not so simple as in discrete data. So let us move to the second group of statistic methods. This group named descriptive statistic method, то есть сравнительные характеристики. These characteristics show how widely scattered the values relative to the typical one. Let's try to count these characteristics. Let's learn the range. What is the range of our data set? The range of our data set is the difference between the largest and smallest value. The largest and the smallest. We have found it, yes, in this row. The range of our data set. In Russian, размах выборки, размах, то есть от наименьшего до наибольшего. Then let's try to count standard deviation. Standard deviation. It shows in what range from the average the values of normal size are located. That is, if you know the mean value, then subtracting the standard deviation from it will give you the low bound of the norm, of the normal. Yes? All values that are less than this limit are abnormally small. If you add the standard deviation to the mean, you get the upper limit of the norm, and all values that are larger than this number are abnormally large. For computing this characteristic, we have a formula. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, let's find it in our book. Let's find it in our book. We should count this characteristic. The next way. I copy this formula if you didn't find it. So we have our mean. Yes. What will we do? What will we do? For example, for this data. We can, let's close this window. For example, we can subtract from every data this value of mean. And square this value. Let's write it. This value minus mean. Mean we pin F4 button and find the square of it. Yes. Let's count this value for all our data. Then we can sum these values and divide it by count by 12. Yes. And now we have to obtain the square root of this value. Where is our standard deviation? We have a function for the square root named корень. And this is the value of our standard deviation for the first row. Yes. For the first row. We have a function in Excel, but I don't know why this function gives us some another value. I don't know, honestly. The function is let's write. I found it. Function stand отклон. No. Standard, yes, that's my fault. Stand отклон G, a function of general data set. It gives us the same. Yes? I forgot something. So we have a function in our Excel, stand отклон G. Stand отклон G. Речь идет о генеральной совокупности, но пока вы об этом еще не говорили, в смысле не называли таким образом там, эти данные. Standard deviation. Yes, let's use this function for other yes. But we have a function, and when we use this function, we don't know what how Excel computes this value. Yes, we don't know, but you should know. You have to know what is the formula of this characteristic and what it is about and how we can calculate it by hand for simple data set. So do you have any question about standard deviation?
Can you show, please, this formula in Excel mode, where where you count it by yourself?
By myself?
Yeah.
Yes, we should calculate xe minus mean.
No. Just code in Excel like equal, then okay, you have column G, and there you count standard deviation.
This?
No, column G.
Column G?
J.
J?
Yeah.
This formula?
Yeah, this.
Yes, I I try to explain you that we should subtract from the every value. We subtract mean, yes, and then power it by square. Then we sum all these values, and divide it by count. And then we find a square root from this value. According from this value, from sum. Yes? Do you understand?
Yes, thanks.
Mhm. Okay. So we've talked about median, and the median is the central observation in the sorted row. It divides our series on two equal parts. In addition to the median, there are many more numbers that divide a series of observations into unequal numbers of parts. For example, quartiles, квартили, да? Quartiles divide a series of observation into 4 equal parts. Deciles, decili, divide into 10 equal parts. And percentiles, процентили есть такое, into 100 equal parts. In fact, you can divide it into any number of equal parts and get your own measure. The most popular of these measures is the quartile. Quartiles divide a series of observations into 4 equal parts. 25% of observation will be less than the first quartile. So now we should find quartiles of our data. I write first, second, third, and I write percentile to find percentile. Let's try to obtain these characteristics. Yes. So the first quartiles. There is a function in Excel. Let's think. Квартиль, по-моему. Квартиль. Let's try. Квартиль, yes. We see квартиль. Возвращает квартиль множество данных. Квартиль искл or квартиль вкл, another function. You can choose any of these. The first argument of this function is array of our data, array. Let's choose our data, our values. And the second argument is the number of quartile, 1, for example. So we find a first quartile of our data. What does the first quartile mean? This is the data that 25% of data are less than this value. 21% of our data set, of our series of data are less than this value. And in the same way, we can obtain percentile. there is a function percentile. Percentile. You see massive K, massive array of our data. And K is, let's read. Значение процентиля в интервале от 0 до единицы включительно. If we want to calculate 10 percentile, we write 0.1. Yes, it's 10th percent. So 10% of our data are less than 3.282. The second quartile, the same function, quartile, our array. We select our array. And second quartile, second 2, the second argument equals 2. Let's copy. And what are we seeing now? What are we seeing? Compare the quartile 2 and the median. Yes, these values are equal. Because quartile is, the second quartile is the median because 50% less than it and 50% larger than it. Yes. And the third quartile, let's compute the third quartile. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it yourself now. And so a quartile, along with the minimum and maximum, is one of the popular short numerical descriptions of data, called a 5-number summary. 5-number summary. From them, you can learn a lot about description of data. And the last characteristic is the interquartile range. Interquartile range is the difference between the first and the third quartile. Difference between the third and the first quartile. So we can find it as so we obtain all our characteristics that you study on your lectures. And now we can talk about box plot. We can talk about box plot. What is the box plot? Box plot in Russia, you can encounter the in Russian language such as ящик с усами, коробчатая диаграмма. Такие названия есть. Do you remember about something about the box plot? Do you remember?
No.
No?
Something maybe.
What?
Something remember.
Something remember. Yes, something.
By the way, can I have a break, please?
We have a break? Yes, okay, let's have a break. If you don't let's have a break about 50 minutes. How are you?
Okay.
Okay, 50 or 30 minutes. 30 minutes. We can meet on 13:20, yes?
Yes.
Okay. We will draw a box plot. See you again.
Excuse me, will you share this file with us on the after the lesson is over?
Yes, yes, okay. I share
Okay.
this file. Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm. Hello, are you here?
Yes.
Yes. One yes, and others?
Others too.
Okay. Who else?
Everybody are here.
Everybody. I hope. Okay. Do you see my screen? Yes? Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, and we stopped on box plot. Yes? What is the box plot? What is the box plot? What do you remember about it? It's a type of graph, yes. We can say this is a graph used in descriptive statistics. And box plot is a way to plot data that simplifies comparison. It allows us to quickly compare data set with each other. And we can say that this type of diagram is a convenient form. In a convenient form shows both the median, the lower, the upper quartiles, the minimum, maximum values, and outliers. Outliers, выбросы. Also, the distance between different parts of the box allows you to determine the degree of scatter, рассеяние, scatter, and asymmetry of data. Asymmetry of data. То есть мы можем увидеть рассеянность и асимметрию данных. Let's remember what is the box plot and how can we draw this graph. Box plot is a box. The width of the box may be any, and the height of the box is equals to interquartile range. Yes, we can draw the box. We find the first quartile, second quartile, third quartile, yes, and we should draw whiskers, yes, whiskers, усы вот эти, and outliers, выбросы. Let's see on our data when we have our data. We find quartile, we find first, third quartile, median, and minimum and maximum. But how can we find outliers? We should calculate the bound of lower whisker, and the bound of the upper whisker, according to the formulas. So we take our first quartile and subtract this amount, this value. And all so the lower quartile is taken, that is the first quartile, and 1.5 interquartile range is subtracted from it. And if there is a value that is less than this value, then it is considered an outlier. The upper bound is defined as the third quartile plus 1.5, 1.5 interquartile range. And accordingly, if there is any greater than this value, it is also considered an outlier. So this is the box plot. And the advantages of box plot is first in the saving space. Compare the diagram, for example, and which is especially useful when we comparing between we compare large numbers of groups or data sets, and what types of observation we can make based on box plot. We can find quartiles, median, this median, and so on. And we can find outliers, and whether the data is symmetric, how densely the data is grouped, насколько плотно они сгруппированы. Is the data shifted, and in so direction, in which direction? То есть куда сдвинуты данные. And in Excel, there is a function, there is an instrument to draw a box plot. Let's try to use it. We select our, select our data, or select all. Let's try, I don't remember. Let's try to select 4 data sets. Yes, 4 data sets. And in this version of Excel, I think it is 16 version, we have side graph as ящик с усами. Ящик с усами. Select this diagram and press OK. And we have box plots for every row of our data. And then we can format this diagram, and if you want, you can learn it yourself, how to format this diagram, how to add some notice, some titles, and so on. Let's one else glance on this box plot, or let's consider example. I found some example. About what is the box plot? What data does it describe? This is the data set of amount of people who pass some test, and their marks on this test. So what can we see? About the low mark was about 47 score, maybe 47 score, and the largest mark was about 100, maybe about 99, yes. And 50% of people pass this test on 87 maybe score, yes. And some people 1, 2, 3, 4 have less than 47, less than 47 score, and what we see on this box plot, we see that the largest part of our people pass this test on high score. What can we see on our box plot? We have a pretty large task for this topic, and now I open it for you. And one moment. And your task will be do the same on your own data set. Do the same that we done today. You have take some data set, not so small as today, and compute all these characteristics and draw diagrams on your own set and try to describe your diagrams. Try to describe box plot, histogram, what you see on your data. Now, do you see the task? Hello, do you see the task? I open it and you can see it under in lesson 1-2 under our table 1, task 1.
Yes.
Can you download it? Open the task and glance at it and ask questions maybe about it.
We don't have permission.
Don't have permission. One moment, please. I check what's wrong. Try one else time.
Now we can.
Okay.
But I have a permission.
Have?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
I
Have.
see all tasks.
Yes, okay. I change link. Yes, this is large task, and I think it can take you more time than one pair than 2 hours, and you can finish it later. And now you can ask me questions about maybe box plot and about anything else.
And this task is for the next lesson.
This tasks is for today and your homework. For today and your homework.
And what is deadline to this work?
One else?
What is the deadline for this work?
Deadline?
Deadline.
Deadline. The next lesson. The next lesson.
Okay, we have a week to do this.
Yes, yes.
And one more question. We have to send you this work in Excel file.
No, obviously, no. You can use some. You can use any program. Any program. Maybe Excel. Something else.
The most important that we don't have to do this with our hands.
Without what?
We don't have to do it with our hands.
Mm-hmm. I shared now these files, today's files. And let's discuss some question about everything. About everything. Давайте немножко, можно на русском, я пару слов хотя бы спрошу, как я, во-первых, куратор же вашей группы, да? Все в курсе. Как вообще идет обучение, какие у вас есть проблемы? Пока я тут буду загружать этот файл.
Ну, проблем фактически нет из-за того, что у нас практических работ толком и не было. Только по 2 предметам, считая этот.
Но только начинается у вас, да?
Да, только по КПП было 2 практических работы, и сейчас 2, и все.
Ну, а лекции там, то есть все нормально. У вас все преподаватели, а вы все дистанционно или что-то требуется от вас, чтобы вы приходили в университет?
Все дистанционно.
Все дистанционно. А что там с физкультурой?
Там скидывали обращения от кафедры физкультуры. То есть тех студентов, что имеют возможность посещать физкультуру, тех, кто в Харькове живет или остался там, они ее посещают. А те, кто не может, тот присылает на Деоноре, там будут задания по физкультуре, надо будет делать.
Угу. А у нас в группе все как бы в курсе, что нужно чего-то посылать из тех, кто не ходит? Ну, из тех, кто там не посещает физкультуру.
Не думаю.
А Ксюша здесь у нас? Староста.
Нет ее в конференции.
Куда-то пропала у нас Ксюша. Ну, там все нормально, она не болеет?
Не, все хорошо у нее.
Угу. Ну, я не знаю, как, ребят, вы, пожалуйста, чтобы потом не получилось, что в конце семестра у нас будет хотя бы по физкультуре какие-то проблемы, вот, чтобы те, кто у нас вообще, сколько у нас, есть такие люди, которые как бы не в Харькове и дистанционно из своего там города или откуда занимаются. Есть в группе у нас такие?
Есть.
Есть, это сказал кто? Тот, кто...
Это я, Никита Якубаш. Я не в Харькове сейчас. Да.
Так, Никита не в Харькове. А кто еще у нас? Ну, чтобы